Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I get to share a project with you for Papertrey Ink, and we're using some brand new items that's part of the April release. It's all about spring, and I love the release, not only because of the fancy dies in here, but also because of the sentiment stamps. We're going to be making a card today with the Papertrey Ink's Into the Blooms Tulips. This is a large die set that will create 3 pretty large tulips. You can see that there's more dies on the back side, and you can see how big the leaves are. This is great for any size project, whether it be scrapbooking, 5x7 cards, A2, slimline, mini slimline, and I love that. So we're going to create a card with this, and they're layering dies, which makes it really nice. I'm also going to be using one of the brand new die sets called Elegant Edges Lace. This one on top. This is a separate die set. This is actually called the Cornered Lace die set. We're not going to use the corners, just this beautiful Elegant Edges Lace die. And then for my sentiment, we're going to be using the Just Sentiment quotes. Love the quotes, and I think they're nice for spring. I like "You make me happy when skies are gray." That's great for scene building, but there's just a lot of quotes in here that you're just going to fall in love with. So I'm going to use that for my card project today. We are going to start off by doing some die cutting, so I'm going to go ahead and take my die set out here. We'll take both of them out. And then what we're going to do is take some Papertrey Ink cardstock. I chose 3 different colors. This is New Leaf, and then this one here is Sweet Blush, and then this one is Lemon Tart. I think these would make great tulips, but we're going to intensify the color with a few inks. And I love that this is a layering set, and we're going to just go ahead and take the bloom that's almost open, and our next size over, we have this piece here. We'll take that. Stuck on my magnet good. So we have 3 layers, and then there is one inside piece you can add. So there's 4 layers for this tulip here. We'll die cut that out with our Lemon Tart cardstock. And then we have our Sweet Blush. We're going to use, what flower are we going to use? I think we're going to use this one. This creates a beautiful tulip. So we'll take this. I'm also going to die cut this piece out because this has the flower centers. I'm going to die cut this out with some white cardstock. Also, I'm going to grab a small piece here. So we'll die cut this out with white also. Now to finish our flower, I'm also going to take this petal. We'll die cut that out. And then we're going to take our background piece and die cut this out as well. And then for our stems, I'm going to need 2 stems. And I kind of like the curve, so I'm going to die cut out the curve piece twice. And then we'll die cut out the larger leaf once. And then I also want the smaller leaf. I think I can squeeze one more smaller leaf in here. Okay, I have everything die cut out, and you can see the flowers are in 4 pieces. And then this one, I die cut out. I discarded the pink inside pieces. You see, oops, you see here. Oops, they're all falling out here. Let me just punch them out. So I won't need this one since we die cut that out with our Sweet Blush. Okay, now what we're going to do, I don't think we're going to use this piece either. We're just going to use these for our flower center. And now we're going to do a little bit of ink blending just to give our flowers some dimension. And I'm going to be using a few different inks. For our Lemon Zest cardstock, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to start by adding a little bit of shading with Orange Zest ink. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit on our first layer. This is our first layer. So we're going to go, what I like to do is just go around where the etched detail is, the shading is, and just add a little bit of color. And maybe along the edges here. That's a great indicator where your layers go. So there's one. It looks like a hot mess, but bear with me. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of color to this one, and again, we're going to go ahead and just go on that embossed detail. A little bit of shading on the bottom also. Maybe I'll add a little bit over here. And then that is good to go. We'll take this piece. This is our third layer, and I'm going to add a little bit of detail here. Just going off to one side and fading on the bottom. We'll do a little bit of shading here on our very bottom piece. Going up off the edges. After I have this done, I'm going to go in with my Harvest Gold ink, and I'm going to add a little bit of extra color just so these blend both together. It kind of makes it a little bit brighter. I'll do the same thing with the rest of these. Okay, we have all of our shading done. And now what we're going to do, we're going to zoom in a little bit. And then we're going to start by adding our first layer. Now I'm going to go ahead and just use my tape runner and adhere my first layer to the base layer. And you can see they line up like perfect. And there is our first layer. After we have our first layer, we're going to go ahead and bring in our second layer. But this one I'm going to add some foam adhesive behind. I'm going to add a foam square. And then this lines up beautifully along that bottom edge. You can see the detail that we're getting. After we have this done, for this layer, I want to go ahead and add my my little stamen to this. It's just going to make it easier, but I don't want the stamen white. I'm going to use my honey nut ink and go ahead and color in these little pieces. After we have our little stamen colored in, what I'm going to do is add a little adhesive behind the top of my last layer. This is the fourth layer. And then I'm going to actually add a little more. If you want to use glue, you could. And then I'm going to add my little bulb piece. This one has the two little circles on it. And then I'm going to add this one right next to it. And then I'll add this one on the opposite end. I think that's going to work out great. You can see here. And then I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to add a foam square behind here. And I'm going to layer the foam square towards the top over those little stamen pieces. This way it helps secure them. And then we can layer this on top of our existing piece. And it layers perfectly right on the existing one, just like a puzzle. And that is our first tulip. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, after we have this done, I'm going to go ahead and work on our second one. The second one, I want to add a little bit more shading. This is our base layer. We don't have to do too much to that, so I'm not going to touch it, but I do want to add some detail to this one. And again, there's embossed detail, and that's where I want to do the shading. I'm going to be using my Berry Sorbet ink and my finger topper. And I just want to go along the top edge very lightly, adding a little bit of color here. I'm going to end up adding a little orange to this one so it stands out also. I think that's going to work out great. So there's a little shading on this one. I can actually go along the bottom too, but you won't be able to see it. Now I'm going to take this petal and we're going to go from the bottom, go along the side, adding a little shading to this one as well. I just love this Berry Sorbet ink. Okay, and then we have this little petal. This one actually needs to be flipped around. I'm going to add a little ink to this as well. And I think we're good to go. Now I'm going to bring back my orange zest and we're going to add a little orangey to the edges also. This is just going to darken it up. We're going to basically do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and take our first layer and put this piece over our base layer with our tape runner. You can see. And then for this one, I'm going to add a foam square behind. Give it some dimension. And this one doesn't have any stamen that go with it, but so I just layer this to the side, and again it just fits like a puzzle, which makes it really nice. And then I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to add some foam adhesive behind here. Then our second tulip is all done. Very quick and easy. Now we're going to take our stems and our leaves. I do want to add some shading with this. For this, I'm going to be using my ripe avocado ink. And then we're just going to add shading to the right side of it. I love doing this because it just adds that extra dimension and extra special touch here. So our leaves and our stems and our flowers are all done, and now we need to create our background. We are going to go ahead and take our Elegant Edges lace die, and I'm going to take some white cardstock, and I'm going to die cut out my my edge about an inch up from the bottom. I want to layer two together, so an inch up is going to give me enough room. So I will tape this down, and then I'm going to take the same die and die cut this out once more with another piece of cardstock because I want this border to be doubled up. Okay, so we have two of these. You can see, isn't that gorgeous? That is so pretty. And of course, if you didn't keep this bottom edge, it would basically cut out this beautiful pattern with the dotted detail on your panel, which I thought was really neat. Now I die cut out another one, and I'm just going to use the bottom scallop, so I want to trim off the top piece, the top area, and then I wanted to double up just to give it a little bit of extra something. I'm going to layer them both together. So I'm going to add some adhesive behind my panel here. I love that dotted detail. You can see here how that looks. I'm going to flip this around. I have a little bit overhanging, so I'll trim that off. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment in just a minute. Before we stamp the sentiment, I wanted some color behind here on my card base. So I'm going to take a piece of cardstock, and then since I have my ink still out, I'm going to add a little bit of shading with my inks. I'm going to start off with my honey gold, and I want this to be in the bottom. We don't really need too much surface area because we don't have that much space really. But I do love this honey gold. We'll add that to the bottom, and then I'm going to add my berry sorbet just above it. I think I'm going to add a little bit of orange in that middle area, just so it kind of blends together real well. Okay, and I think this is going to be perfect. Let's see. We'll take our panel. I think that's going to work out lovely. I am going to trim this down. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment. Let's set these aside. I'm going to stamp. The sentiment says, with a new day comes new strength and new thoughts. This quote was from Eleanor Roosevelt, which is pretty fabulous. I don't trust my hand, so I'm bringing in my stamping positioner. I'm going to lightly tack it inside my MISTI. And then we'll stamp our sentiment. I'm going to be using my True Black ink. Stamp it a few times. And our sentiment is good to go. Isn't that so pretty? I love the scripty with the regular font. I just think that's so nice. I have my card base. It's a top folding A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm going to take my ink blended panel. We're going to add adhesive behind it. And then what I like to do is place where I want my pattern behind. Kind of line it up. And then this is going to go at the very top of my card base. So I'll line this up, tack it down, and then this is perfectly positioned on my card base. Now I'm going to take this panel and I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to add foam adhesive behind here. And then I'll just remove the release paper. We can place this on our card base. Again, we're going to put it all the way to the top. Okay, I'm going to lightly tack my card base closed. That way I can add my tulips. Now you could put your tulips together by just adding your stem and your leaves right now, but I like to build it on my card base. So what we're going to do first is figure out where we're going to put our tulips. And then I'm going to add a little bit of glue behind my stem. Then we can add our tulip stem. I think that's going to work out great. And then I will add this one. These are nice because they can go any which way. And I'm going to use my tape runner for this. Add this. And I do need to add a small foam square underneath. Once we have the excess trimmed off, I love the dimension that this has, and it's really not too bulky. I am going to do a couple finishing touches. I do want to add some white highlight with my white gel pen along the tulips and the darker areas of the tulips. When there's a lot of white open space, I like to do this, and it really just kind of brings everything to light. You'd be amazed what little dots can do. And then I want to add a little bit of sparkle, so I'm going to use some clear sequins here. I'm just going to add a few. Okay, we'll just funnel these back in there. And then that finishes off my card project today. A nice springy card with my favorite flower. I hope you enjoyed the project. If you haven't had a chance to check out the April release, I encourage you to do so. It's pretty amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you a lovely day, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.